it's Alice and welcome to this reading vlog. So I have some mystery type of books on my TBR that I'm really looking forward to, and I want to read them, and I thought I would vlog the process. My reading so far this year has not been like the best, and I think that maybe vlogging the process of reading these books might help motivate me, I guess, and I'm just really looking forward to these books, and I think they're gonna be great. I love a good mystery, whether it's a mystery thriller or a cozy mystery, it doesn't really matter to me. I love them all. And so I've picked out 3 books that are like on the top of my TBR that I really want to get to. And funnily enough, I didn't realize this until this second, that these books have something else in common too. And it's that they all have like academic settings, which is very cool. I think books with like college or university settings or any kind of like school setting is really cool. And it's one of those things that I've never really thought about that I really like, but then in recent years with the rise of dark academia books, I've realized that that is a thing that I really like. And so these 3 actually all have that as well, which I'm really looking forward to. So the books that I've picked out are these 3 books. We have In My Dreams I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. We have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, which I know some of you are very excited for me to read. And then we have They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I'm gonna tell you about what each book is about as we go along, but I'll tell you about the first book that I'm gonna read and the synopsis of it. I think I'm gonna start with this one, just because I've heard so many good things about this. This ended up on a lot of people's favorites of the year lists like last year, and I just feel like I wanna start with this one. I don't really have a good reason, I just want to start with this one. The synopsis of this says 6 friends, 1 college reunion, 1 unsolved murder. And it's about this woman who returns 10 years after graduation to her like elite university that she went to, and she is very, like, she wants everyone to see like this confident, beautiful, indifferent girl, and not the girl she was when she left campus. Back when Heather Shelby's murder fractured everything, including the tight bond linking the 6 friends she'd been closest to since freshman year. Then it says not everyone is ready to move on, and someone has decided to try and trap the real killer of the girl who was murdered. And I guess these 6 college friends come together and we figure out what has happened. I have to say, I have really high expectations for this book, which is kind of dangerous sometimes with like mystery thrillers. It is so rare for me to give a mystery thriller like 5 stars or something like that. There's something about the genre that never quite reaches it like to the top for me, even though I absolutely love it. And this has just so much praise, and it says it's like tense and twisty and juicy. And it also says, and this is very dangerous, for fans of The Secret History. I think it should be illegal to compare anything to The Secret History. I don't think that's what it's gonna be like, but I have high hopes. I've heard that this has really good characters, and that does a lot for me. I also have to say, I absolutely love this cover. There's something about it I find very enticing, even though someone pointed out to me that they find it annoying that the cover has scissors on it when it's like knife is in the title, but I don't really mind that. I really like the cover, and I'm gonna start this now and we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I have kind of high expectations, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, so I planned to do like a midway check-in when I was reading this book, and I just ended up like zooming through the whole thing. So I've actually finished this now, and I have a lot of thoughts. Now, firstly, the book is told from the perspective of one of the characters named Jessica, who is the person who is like going to this reunion and is determined for everyone to see like the new and improved her. And we learn that she was a part of a friend group in college, and it's been like 10 years since she went to college, obviously. And when she was there, one of her friends, like in that friend group, was murdered. And obviously that had a really big impact on the group, and they've sort of drifted apart from each other. And it's basically like split into 2 timelines. So we follow Jessica and the group of friends that are still around at the college reunion, and then we follow them as they like go to college and get to know each other, and we get to learn about all their different like dynamics and relationships, and it's all very like intricate and complicated. Jessica is quite an interesting main character, and she seems very obsessed with people having a certain opinion of her. Like, it's very important to her to be a certain thing, and we learn that that has something to do with her parents and all of that. And as we go through the book, we learn more about all of the different people in the friend group and like why they are the way they are and all of that. And the friend group consists of like 7 people in the college days, and obviously one of them dies, so in the present day there's 6 people. But then there's also a lot of other characters. There's like one girl who's kind of in the group but not really, and there's a lot of characters in here. One of the things that I thought about this when I was just getting into it, and I was like 50 pages in, is that it has a really great sense of foreboding throughout the whole book, like both in the past perspective and the present one, which I really, really like. I like when books are structured in a way where you know that something has gone wrong, and you obviously learn in the beginning of the book that this girl has died, and so in the past perspective, we know it's gonna happen, but we're just like trying to get there and seeing what happens along the way. And then in the present perspective, it's very clear that it's one person in the group who has murdered the girl. Like, we learned that very quickly, that that's the theory. And obviously you're like following these people and you're like, who is it? I also quite enjoyed the setting of the university and like the culture around the university and in the university, and following like these people at that time in their lives when everything is like really exciting and it feels like the world has opened up to you. And you're also in that part of your life where you probably care quite a lot about what other people think of you. And there's something about that period of time in your life that I think a lot of people can relate to. And I also really liked the academic setting, both in the past and the present. I really liked the backdrop of this university. It is described to us a little bit, and I feel like it was enough to sort of at least picture it. Like I said, I flew through this book. Like, I read it really, really quickly, and it's the kind of book that feels really compulsive, like you want to keep going, and there are loads of little reveals along the way that like keep you hooked, I feel. But like I think I said, I did have very, very high expectations of this book. Like, it's gotten so many amazing reviews, and people that I see online have said that this is like their favorite mystery thriller, and to be honest, I don't really get why. I think because it's so hyped, I thought that it was gonna be like different in a way or original in a way, and to me it didn't really feel like that. I feel like this was a very like engaging and entertaining story, but it didn't really bring anything that I haven't seen before. But I don't know if I just missed something. I feel like I did, but I'd expected quite a lot more from the reveal at the end. I really, really thought that it was gonna bring something really, really shocking. And for me, it didn't. It was just very much like, well, obviously it's one of the people in this group, and then we find out who it is, and I was like, all right, I guess that makes sense. I think that maybe for me, there are a lot of like little things about this that make it so that it's not my favorite book. Like, I think I probably prefer slightly more descriptive writing. I think that I liked a lot of the characters. I thought they were interesting, but I think that there were too many characters. We basically follow, in one way or another, like almost 8 people, and it's a lot of people to follow. And I think that maybe there are that many people because it makes things more confusing and intricate, but for me, I felt like not all of the characters were like super fleshed out, and I would rather have like 3 or 4 excellent characters than 8 good ones, if that makes sense. Like, there were no characters in here that I really, really felt like were... It's not that I didn't feel they were real, but I didn't feel like a deep connection to any of them. And A lot of them are quite unlikable, especially the main character, like Jessica. She's very unlikable. She's selfish and narcissistic, and she does a lot of things that you kind of understand, but it's also like not the best decisions. And I usually quite like reading about those kinds of characters. I know that some people don't like reading about unlikable characters, but I usually really like it. But for me, there was something, like some sort of puzzle piece in her and a lot of the other characters that was missing for me. One of the things that I think is excellent about this book, though, is the pacing. I think the pacing is like 10 out of 10, and for a lot of mystery thrillers, there's always like something with the pacing that is a little bit off. There's like a bit in the middle that's really slow or whatever, but I feel like this didn't really put in anything irrelevant or unnecessary, and that helps with the pacing. And like I said, there are loads of like little twists along the way, and that helps as well. And so I think that the pacing in this was like immaculate. I just think that I had expected more. I think if I went into this with no expectations, I would have probably liked it a little bit better. But because this like I read through the reviews on Goodreads and like a lot of the 5-star reviews, and I'll be honest, I don't really get it. I don't know if it's just like not my type of writing style, or not my favorite way of like describing characters or whatever, but I don't know. I don't see what is so amazing about this compared to a lot of other mystery thrillers. Maybe it's just that I've read a lot of them, and so it takes a lot to impress me and it takes a lot to surprise me, but also a lot of the people that I've seen reviews from are people who read a lot of mystery thrillers. So I don't really know what I didn't get about this, but there was obviously something. All of this maybe sounds a little bit negative, but I think it's just because I've heard so many good things about this that it's hard not to focus on it. But like I said, I flew through this book, which is very impressive, especially for me right now, because my reading is not the best. And I usually, like with the books I've read so far this year, none of them have made me want to read the book like this one. And I feel like that is like a particular skill that is really amazing, and it's been a while since I've read a book that's felt this compulsive. Like I had to know what the hell was going on. Now, like I think I said earlier, I usually don't rate mystery thrillers like super high. It's very rare that anything gets like 5 stars. Usually a 4-star mystery thriller for me is about as good as it gets. I don't know why, but there's something about the genre that usually doesn't quite like make it to 5 stars for me. And so I would give this book 3 stars, and 3 stars is a really good rating for a mystery thriller. And it's the kind of book that I would definitely recommend to people, but I would sort of follow it up with the fact that you have to like unlikable main characters in order to enjoy this. I don't think you should go into it with too high expectations. I think if you want something that's exciting and like addictive, this is a great read, but it's not the most original mystery thriller, and I thought it was going to be more original in a way than it was. I think that for me, it's very, very good, but it doesn't necessarily stand out that much. Also, I did want to mention that even though I wasn't like super surprised by the reveal of who was the murderer, there is a bit at the end that I'd heard a lot of people talking about, like the very last couple of pages where we learn something, and I really liked that part. Like that was a little bit shocking, but it was probably the most shocking thing that happened at the end. I found that much more like interesting and intriguing than finding out who the actual murderer was. The reading experience of this was also like very, very good. Like I said, I flew through this book and it was very, very enjoyable and entertaining, and I felt quite sucked into it, so that's definitely a positive. But yeah, obviously I didn't love it as much as other people. I would love to know if any of you have read this and you like absolutely loved it. I would love to know like all of your opinions, like why it worked so well for you. Do tell me about it. But I finished this now, so it's time to move on to the next book, which I think is going to be Ninth House. My edition of this book is like really tiny for some reason, which I think is really funny. Although what it lacks in like height, it makes up in length, I think. It's almost like 500 pages. And I actually picked this book over the other one to read now because it is so small, and if everything goes according to plan, I will be traveling in the next couple of weeks, and I thought that this would be the easiest to like bring with me because it's not that big. Now, the back of the book is like really long, so I'm not gonna read you the whole thing, but if I remember correctly, this is about this girl who has been in an accident and something happens where she like is offered this scholarship at Yale, I think, and she doesn't, I don't know if she knows who gives her the scholarship or like who she's making this deal with, but she's given a place at Yale in return for her trying to like keep track of their like secret societies or something. I feel like that's what it is. I don't really know, but there is something about secret societies. I do know that. I also see words on the back here like occult activities and magic and raising the dead and preying on the living. So I think there's a lot going on with these secret societies. I'd say that my expectations for this book are also pretty high, but I feel like it's based more on you guys' recommendation, because a lot of you have recommended this book to me. It has more to do with that than with like any hype that's going on right now. I think for this, I got very caught up in the current hype, whereas with this, I'm basing it more on recommendations, and it's not as hyped right now, if that makes sense. And I think this is the kind of book where I feel like there's more people who have like mixed feelings on it, and so I feel like my expectations are slightly lower. But I have read Leigh Bardugo's work before and really liked it, but I haven't read anything in this genre, and it's been a while since I've read her books. So I'm excited. I have kind of high expectations, but I guess we'll just have to start it and see. So it's time for an update on this book, and to everyone who told me that I was gonna love this book, you're damn right. It is fantastic. I'm actually surprised by how much I'm loving this book. Like, I knew I was gonna like it, but I did not know that I was gonna love it this much. I am sucked into this, and it is just so damn good. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself because I haven't finished it yet, but so far it is delivering. Now, the story starts off with us meeting Alex, who is the main character, and she has gotten into Yale, not because of her academic merit, but because she has been recruited into this secret society. There are 8 secret societies at Yale, all of which do different types of magic, and Alex is in the 9th house, if you will, and they are charged with sort of looking out for and taking care of the secret societies and making sure that they don't like step out of line, but they also kind of help them when it comes to the magic and stuff. And so Alex has been recruited into the secret society, or the 9th house, where they take care of the secret societies. And there's a system where there's like a person who is training her, who has already been in that position for 3 years, and then in their 4th year they train the new person who's supposed to have this role. And so we also meet the guy who is training her, and he has already been doing it for like 3 years. Now, the timeline jumps around quite a lot, and we learn at the beginning of the book that Alex has been a part of this horrible tragedy where I think 2 people were murdered, but she survived. And so there's a mystery around that, and we don't really know what's happened. We just know that it's happened, and slowly there are things sort of being revealed about that. But then there is also another mystery, because the guy who is training, or was training Alex, has gone missing. So there are basically 2 mysteries in here, along with all of the other mysterious stuff that is going on, like what the secret societies are up to and all of that. But the main 2 mysteries are like what happened in the case with Alex, where she somehow survived, and then there's also where has this dude gone? Like, we don't know. Now, in this world, there is obviously magic, like I mentioned, like the secret societies do different kinds of magic, and in the back here there's actually a list of the secret societies and what they do. So one of the things that the Skull and Bones Society does is divination using human and animal entrails. And we actually had a scene where there is some of that, which, like, when I read it, I didn't understand what was going on, and then I went back and I reread it and I was like, oh my god. Very intriguing. And then there are like different societies. Someone does astral and etheric projection, and necromancy and bone conjuring, mirror magic. We also saw some of that actually, which was very interesting. It was like a party. And all of it is really interesting. But there is also something else to this fantasy world. There is something called greys, and they're basically ghosts, and they are everywhere. And the reason that Alex got into Yale, like, we learned this in the beginning of the book, like very early on, we learned that the reason she has been recruited into the secret society is that she can see the greys, she can see the ghosts, and most people can't. Most people have to like drink a potion in order to see them, but she can just see them. And we also learned that she has been able to see them her whole life, and that has gotten her into quite a lot of stuff. I really like can't overstate how much I'm loving this book right now. Like, it's just everything that I want. The academic setting is fantastic. It's very like dark academia, if you will. The atmosphere is amazing. I'm loving all of the fantasy elements, which I wasn't quite sure if I was gonna love, but I do love it. Like, it fits very well into this world, I feel, and it's explained very well. And I'm just loving it. I love the characters. I love how it jumps around and it keeps you on edge. And I am dying to find out what is going on and what has happened. And there's a lot going on, but it also doesn't feel rushed. And I'm just loving this book. I am flabbergasted. Like, I'm really, really blown away. I thought I was gonna love it, but like I was not expecting this. It's actually one of those books where I'm dying to read it, but I also kind of don't want to read it because I don't want it to end. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do when I've finished this book, but then I also just have to find out what is going on. Like, where is this guy that has gone missing, and also how did Alex survive that accident, and what happened, and like what's going on with all of the secret societies, the ghosts. We actually just had I'm not gonna spoil it, but I just read a part where Alex had like an incident with a gray, and it was just, it's so exciting. Like, I can't wait to find out what's gonna happen. So I'm just gonna have to go read this book now, actually, and I feel like I'm probably gonna read like this whole chunk all in one go. Alright folks, so I finished this book, and I pretty much stand by what I said earlier. I loved this. I don't want to spoil this, so I'm not going to tell you that much about what happened in the last half, but it was really exciting, and there are just so many elements in this story that I personally like that it just ended up being a great read for me. First of all, this is very like dark academia. It fits very well into that, so if you like those kinds of things, I think you'd like this. And I just loved the writing. I loved all of the descriptions and the setting of Yale and all of the stuff with the secret societies. Like, I thought all of that was just so much fun. I also really liked the fantasy elements in here. I felt like they were baked into the world really well, and I loved reading about it. And for me, this was just a very immersive book. Like, I felt like it really pulled me in, and I wanted to keep going constantly. And I also feel like this book is kind of dark, which I really liked, and it's a little bit spooky, like the perfect amount, and then it's also quite gritty, all of which I thought was great. Now, I got so sucked into this that when I was reading it, I didn't really notice a lot of the, at least some of the probably less great stuff about this book. For me, I didn't really care about any of it because I was enjoying this so much, but I can see, like, looking back at it now, that there is some stuff there. Like, the main character is quite stereotypical in a lot of ways, and she's very unlikable, which worked for me personally, and I understand that she's a little stereotypical in a lot of ways, but I don't know how she could have been that different, because I think that her perspective looking into this insanely privileged world was really important. And the story is a lot about like powerful people abusing their power, and I think that she's a good, like, she's very different. Like, she's a different kind of person in this world of a lot of the same kinds of people. And I think that really worked very well. And I also felt like as we went along with the story, she really grew on me. I can also tell that this book is a little bit slow in parts, and I get the feeling that the beginning of this book loses a lot of people. Like, I've read some reviews of this now, and it seems like in the first part, some people get a little bit lost with this and they don't like it. And honestly, I think that if you don't like the first 100 pages, this isn't the book for you. I quite liked the pace of this. I like when books have like slower parts so that we get to spend a little bit more time with the characters and like explore the world a little bit. I like fast-paced book, but I don't like it when like stuff is happening all the time. I like when there are some like quiet bits in between. But I do understand that it's probably a little bit of a slower book. I do feel like there was so much exciting stuff happening though, so I don't know. But I can see how some people find this a little bit slow. This does have quite high ratings on Goodreads in general, but it does seem to have like a fair amount of negative reviews. And I've read some of them because I just think it's interesting to read those things. And it seems to me like for a lot of the people who didn't like this book, it's because they've read Leigh Bardugo's other work, and this is like very, very different. And I think that when you love an author and you like her or him writing, or they writing a certain type of book, suddenly there's something else. It like throws you off a little bit because you have really high expectations or certain expectations going into something. But I have read some of Bardugo's other work like back in the day, and this is for sure very, very different. I think for me, if I reread the books that I read back in the day now, I wouldn't like them, but this is much more my speed. Like, this is exactly what I want. I think it's just a matter of taste with this book, and I think it's one of those books that you're either really going to enjoy or it's just not the book for you. And I think you'd be able to tell in the first like 100 pages. Like, if you're not getting on with it by then, it's probably not the book for you. You can just move on to something else that's more suited your taste. For me though, this was just such a fun ride, and it was really, really good, dark, and again, I love the academic setting. I love all of the secret society stuff. Like, I feel like this is a book that I've been looking for a really long time, and I can't believe that I put it off for so long. So very, very glad that I read this. It is also the first book in a series, and it's one of those books that I'm actually glad is in a series, and hopefully the second one will come out at some point soon. I don't actually know when this book came out. 2019. So it's like 3 years ago now, so maybe the second book is on the horizon. I hope so. I also forgot to mention, by the way, that this does have a map in it, which I very much enjoyed. I just think that in this edition, because the book is so small and it's like very, like the spine is very stiff, you don't get the full experience of the map because there's parts of the map that have disappeared into like the middle bit. I also, by the way, feel like I need to mention that this book is like fairly gruesome as well. Like, there are some stuff in here, like if you don't like graphic stuff, maybe like think about that before reading this book. It gets pretty rough in parts, but for me, it was great. I guess I forgot to tell you what I'm gonna rate this book, and it's honestly because I don't really know. It's probably a 5-star read for me, actually, because I just enjoyed it so much. But there's like some stuff in it that drags it down a little bit for me, and it's one of those books where I feel like I wish I gave like 4.5 stars, but I don't. So it's like 4 or 5. Probably 5 for me. Anyways, I feel like I talked a lot about that book, but I did really enjoy it a lot. And now it's time to read the final book I'm gonna read for this vlog. It's They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's gonna be great. It's about this English professor who works at this university, and every year she like seeks out the worst man at the university and starts plotting his death, and then she eventually kills him. And the story is just about that. I think that when we meet her, she's like plotting to murder someone, and then she does, but then it doesn't go very well, and so she gets in trouble. She loses control with her latest victim. So that is very interesting. I do really like the idea of reading about a female serial killer. I think that's really interesting. And again, love books with academic settings, so really looking forward to this. I will say, whenever I finish like a really, really good book, I always think that my next book is not going to be as great, because there's no way I'm going to read like 2 amazing books one after the other. I don't know why I feel that way, but because I'm reading this book now, I have like semi-high expectations, but not as high because I just finished Ninth House and it was so good, and there's no way this is going to be as good. It might be. I don't know why I think like that, but yeah. We'll see how this goes, and honestly, I think I might just read this book all in one go and then tell you what I think about it, because I've already started editing this vlog and it's getting really long. So yeah, I will talk to you once I have read this book. Okay, so I finished the last and final book for this very, very long vlog, and it's time to wrap it all up. So my thoughts on this book: it was very easy to read, very easy to get into, and I like flew through it. We follow 2 different perspectives in here. We follow the perspective of the English professor, who is a serial killer and who is basically offing as many horrible men as she can without getting caught. And we also follow this very anxious student who has just started the university, and she's kind of like happy to be there, but she's also very nervous. She comes from a family where the father of the family is like super abusive, and so she's happy to get away, but she's also obviously like, she has a lot of stuff to deal with, and so she's honestly just trying to survive. The book switches between the 2 perspectives, and the story goes by super, super quickly. The chapters are quite short, and I read this within the span of like 24 hours, so it's definitely the kind of book that you could probably read in like 1 or 2 sittings. And it's just really fast-paced. It has a lot of messed up characters in it, and there are several twists as we go along. Now, my enjoyment factor of this is really, really high. Like, I had a great time reading this book, and I think the concept of the story is really interesting and kind of cool, and so I really liked that. And I also really liked the twists that we got, because I was really surprised by them. I also actually quite liked the ending, which I can imagine splits opinions a little bit, but I quite liked it. It ended very differently than I thought it would. I had a lot of fun reading this book, even though there's quite a lot of murders in it and a lot of violence. I really just enjoyed it. That being said, I don't particularly think the writing style is anything special, at least not to me. It doesn't really stand out that much. I think that there aren't really that many descriptions of anything, like the school or people, or I think that I probably just prefer more descriptive writing, and I prefer more atmospheric writing. There are some parts in here that are kind of atmospheric, but it's more tense in a way, and I think that I just like writing that brings the world more to life, if you will. I also personally didn't feel like the characters were that well done. Like, for me, I didn't really feel like they were that complicated or complex, and a lot of them are really unlikable. And I feel like when I read about an unlikable character, I would like there to be more depth there, and I prefer if the characters are the kinds of characters where you sort of sometimes agree with them, sometimes you don't, sometimes you like them, sometimes you don't, and you like question what they're doing along the way, and it just digs a little bit deeper. I prefer that. I think that basically all the characters in this book are pretty one-dimensional. I do think if you like revenge stories, this is a pretty good one, and even though it's like dark and compulsive, it is also a lighter read in some ways, because it doesn't really dig that deep into anything. It's very like, all men are trash in a lot of ways, which could be interesting, but it doesn't really dig that deep into that whole thing. It's just kind of there. And I've heard like people say that this is like a feminist mystery thriller, and I don't really feel like that's what it is, because it doesn't really dig that deep into any like important feminist issues. Maybe a little bit in some ways, but I feel like it presents the discussion in a very one-dimensional way, and it doesn't really offer up a lot of food for thought, if you will. It's just kind of a story that you read, and it's fun, and it's there. It is for sure a real page turner though, so there is that. Now, I feel like I've spoken about these books to death, and if you've made it this far into the vlog, you probably know what I think about all of them, and if you've made it this far, congratulations, and also thank you, because it's gonna be a long one. And obviously, if you've made it this far, you know that Ninth House was my favorite. I just think it just does more for me. I like the writing more. I think that it discusses stuff in a more interesting way, and it dug a little bit deeper for me, and it made a bigger impact for me. And these two, I feel like, I'm holding up the book the wrong way. These two, I feel like I'm gonna rate them fairly similarly. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna rate this 3 stars. I feel like maybe I said I was gonna rate it 4 stars, but it's a 3-star book for me. And this is also a 3-star read, although I do think that this does more interesting things with the story. It does like discuss things in a little bit more of an interesting and deep way, whereas this is just more like a fun, interesting revenge stories that has a lot of like messed up characters in it. There are a lot of messed up characters in both of these actually, and they both have like quite narcissistic main characters, which is interesting. So they are similar in some ways, but I would probably say that this one is better in some way, but both have a lot of twists in them, and both are really fun to read. I think for me, Ninth House is just a very different type of mystery, and it stands out to me a lot more than the other two, and it just has a lot of stuff in it that I really enjoyed, like all of the fantasy elements I loved, and I just think it does more, and I also think that this writing style is more for me, probably. And it is a mystery thriller in some ways, but it is a very different kind of mystery thriller, and I was just pleasantly surprised by it. And I feel like this is a new favorite, whereas these are just like fun mystery thrillers. Like I enjoyed them, but they're not like new favorite books. I would still really recommend these though. I think that they're great books for the right readers. I just think you have to find out if you're the right reader or not for these books. I do think that if you like mystery thrillers, you're gonna have a good time with these. All right. I'm finally gonna round this off now. That was the whole vlog, and I would love to know if you've read any of these books, or if you have read any fun like mystery thrillers lately, or any kind of like dark academia books. I would love to hear about it. And yeah, that was it for this video. Thank you for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon. Bye!